Hello everyone and welcome to this course on Rural Agriculture Work Experience. We are on module number 10, which is Farm Machinery. Let us now start the session. Module Objectives. At the end of this module, the trainee will learn about the following: Introduction to Farming, Introduction to India's Agricultural Sector, Introduction to India's Farm Equipment Sector, Tillage and Soil Farming Equipment, Sowing and Planting Equipment, Plant Protection Equipment, Harvesting, Threshing and Post-Harvest Machineries and Equipment. Introduction to Farming. The activity of growing crops and raising livestock is called farming. It is one of the most important activities and is very significant for human survival. Farming can be categorized into two main types: subsistence farming and commercial farming. When farming is practiced to meet the needs of the family, it is called as subsistence farming. The purpose of farming here is to grow crops for personal consumption. Commercial farming. When farming is done for sale in market, it is called as commercial farming. The purpose of farming here is to grow crops that can be sold in the market. Process of farming. The different steps involved in farming are as follows: seed bed preparation, sowing and planting, weeding, intercultivation, plant protection, etc., harvesting and threshing, and last step is post harvest and agro processing. Farming system. The entire farming system can be understood as a combination of inputs and different processes to gain the required output. Inputs include machinery, seeds, physical inputs like rain, sunlight, etc., and fertilizers and chemicals. Processes include seed bed preparation, sowing, weeding, spraying, harvesting, etc., and output is crops. Introduction to India's agricultural sector. Economic activities are divided into three broad sectors: agriculture and allied sector, industry sector, and services sector. Agriculture and allied sector. It involves extraction and production of natural resources like farming, fishing, etc. Industry sector. This sector processes natural resources produced by the agriculture and allied sector to make final goods like baking bread out of wheat, making sugar cubes out of jaggery, etc. Services sector. This sector provides support to the above two sectors through services like banking, transport, etc. 14% of India's GDP comes from agriculture and allied sector. Agriculture sector in India is one of the most dominant source of employment. A massive 49% of India's labor force is employed by this sector. 60% of rural households depend on agriculture for their livelihood. Introduction to India's farm equipment sector. Across the world, farm mechanization has been identified as one of the most important tools to increase agricultural production. Farm productivity in India has been highly variable due to irregular monsoons. This makes farm mechanization highly crucial for India's agricultural sector. India's agricultural sector has witnessed a considerable decline in the use of animal and human power in agriculture related activities. The trend has paved the way for a range of agricultural tools like tractors, power tillers, etc. This has resulted in a shift from the traditional agriculture process to a more mechanized process. Farm mechanization in India stands at about 40%. Here is a global comparison between the share of agriculture to GDP and level of mechanization. Dear trainees, please have a deep look at these pictures to understand the comparison. Dear trainees, on the left side, you can see the extent of farm mechanization across India, and on the right side, you can see the extent of mechanization in India across various steps of farming. The benefits of farm mechanization is as follows. It improves crop yield, increases efficiency and reduces workload of the farmers, improves the quality of cultivation and reduces post-harvest losses, reduces production cost for farmers and thus increases income, helps in conversion of uncultivable land to agricultural land through advanced tilling techniques and equipment, improves safety in the farm. Role of a service and maintenance technician in farm equipment. In order to cater to the demand of growing population, farm mechanization is seen as the way forward for increasing farm productivity. As farmers in India buy and use farm machinery, the need for technicians to repair and service those equipment also becomes crucial. The role of a service and maintenance technician for farm equipment is as follows: diagnose problems with the farm equipment, carry out regular maintenance of the equipment, carry out minor repair of the equipment, understand and procure parts that need change, explain issues to customers. Opportunities and career path for a farm equipment technician. Farm equipment technician has the following opportunities. If your area has a farm machinery bank, you can be its in charge. You can set up your own shop to rent farm equipment and provide service and maintenance of farm equipment to customers. You can become an agri-business entrepreneur by managing both farming and farm equipment. Tools and equipment. Different tools used by the technician. Gloves. Proper hand protection is of the utmost importance for all personnel. Goggles. Protect your hands from cuts, chemical burns, or contact with biohazards. Safety shoes. Safety shoes protect your feet. Safety belts and straps. These are what might be called your extra hands when you work at some height. Bolo knife, used for cutting tall grasses and weeds and chopping branches of trees. Crowbar, used for digging holes and removing big stones and stumps. Pick mattock, used for digging canals, breaking hard topsoil, and for digging up stones and tree stumps. Grab hoe, used for breaking hard topsoil and pulverizing soil. Spade, used for removing trash or soil, digging canals or ditches and mixing soil media. Shovel, used for removing trash, digging loose soil, moving soil from one place to another, and for mixing soil media. Rake, used for cleaning the ground and leveling the topsoil. Spading fork, used for loosening the soil, digging out root crops, and turning over the materials in a compost heap. Light hoe, used for loosening and leveling soil and digging out furrows for planting. Hand trowel, used for loosening the soil around the growing plants and putting some small amount of manure or fertilizer in the soil. Hand fork, used for inter-row cultivation. Axe, used for cutting bigger posts. Hand cultivator, used for cultivating the garden plot by loosening the soil and removing weeds around the plant. Pruning shears, used for cutting branches of planting materials and unnecessary branches of plants. Knife, used for cutting planting materials and for performing other operations in horticulture. Sprinklers, used for watering seedlings and young plants. Sprayers, used for spraying insecticides, foliar fertilizers, fungicides, and herbicides. Water pails, used for hauling water, manure, and fertilizers. Wheelbarrow, used for hauling trash, manure, fertilizers, planting materials, and other equipments. Sickle. Sickle is a handheld agricultural tool with a variously curved blade, typically used for cutting weeds. Tillage and soil farming equipment. Tillage, to prepare a desirable soil structure for a deep seed bed or a root bed suitable for different types of crops. Classification of tillage: primary tillage and secondary tillage. Primary tillage. It is the initial major soil working operation designed to plow the soil deeply to reduce soil strength, cover plant materials, and rearrange aggregates. Objectives of primary tillage: to reduce soil strength, to rearrange aggregates, to cover plant materials and bury weeds, to kill insects and pests. Plow. Shear. It is the working part of the plow attached to the shoe with which it penetrates into the soil and breaks it open. Shoe. It supports and stabilizes the plow at the required depth. Body. It is the main part of the plow to which the shoe, beam, and handle are attached. In country plows, both body and shoe are made in a single piece of wood. Beam. It is a long wooden piece which connects the main body of the plow to the yoke. Handle. A wooden piece vertically attached to the body to enable the operator to control the plow while it is in use. Mold board plow. It cuts, lifts, breaks up, and loosens soil that has been compacted to a depth of usually 100 to 200 mm below the soil surface. Dear trainees, below in this slide you can see the components of a mold board plow and types of mold boards. Secondary tillage. Tillage operations performed after primary tillage to create proper soil tilth for seeding and planting are called secondary tillage. It is accomplished by use of various types of harrows, rollers or pulverizers and tools for mulching and fallowing. Harrows. Harrow is a secondary tillage implement used for a variety of jobs in crop cultivation. Land rollers or pulverizers. Land rollers or pulverizers are tools used for further preparation of seed bed. Sowing is the art of placing seeds in the soil to have good germination in the field. A perfect sowing gives correct amount of seed per unit area, correct depth of sowing, correct spacing between row to row and plant to plant, and correct seed rate. Seed drill. A seed drill is a machine used for placing the seeds in a continuous stream in furrows at a uniform rate and at a controlled depth with an arrangement of covering the seeds with the soil. Planter. Planter is a sowing equipment used for sowing those seeds which are larger in size and cannot be handled by seed drills. Row to row and plant to plant spacing is maintained in a planter. Sprayer. Sprayer is a machine to apply fluids in the form of droplets. Some forms of sprayer are hand compression sprayer and power sprayer. Harvesting. The operation of cutting, picking, plucking, digging or any combination of these for removing the whole crop or edible part of the crop from either under the ground or above the ground is called harvesting. Threshing machines. Thresher is a machine to separate grains from the harvested crop and provide clean grain without much loss and damage. Post harvest. Post harvest treatments deal with fruit protection and enhancement of fruit quality. The development of post harvest treatments has permitted the creation of the current global fruit and vegetable trade. Power tiller. What is a power tiller? A power tiller is a walking type tractor that helps to break and till the soil. The direction of travel and its controls for field operation are performed by the operator who walk behind the tractor. Dear trainees, please have a look at this picture to understand the location of the frame and engine serial number. Main parts of a power tiller are engine. An engine is where the fuel is burned to produce energy to move a vehicle or equipment. All power tillers are fitted with an engine. Some power tillers use diesel as their fuel to produce energy like Kubota, Mitsubishi, Krishi, Yanmar, Satoho, etc., whereas other use kerosene like Iseki. Clutch. The clutch lever engages and disengages the transmission that drives the tines. Brakes. All power tillers have braking arrangement for stopping the movement of power tiller. Steering and wheels. Power tillers have steering handles to control direction. The front wheel is used to help move the tiller from one side to another. Rotary unit. Power tillers have a rotary unit for field operation. Rotary units have rotary tines for soil cutting and pulverizing purposes. Rotary tines are of three types: straight tines, curved tines, and L-shaped blades. Throttle lever. Throttle lever is for increasing and decreasing the speed of the engine. Pulling the throttle lever towards the grip increases the engine speed, which causes the tines to turn. Releasing the throttle lever reduces engine speed and stops the tiller tines from turning. Storage of a power tiller. Storage preparation. Proper storage preparation is essential for keeping your tiller trouble free and looking good. The following steps will help to keep rust and corrosion from impairing your tiller's function and appearance and will make the engine easier to start when you use the tiller again. Cleaning. Wash the tiller including the underside. Engine. Wash the engine by hand and be careful to prevent water from entering into the air cleaner. Safety precautions for servicing. Some of the most important safety precautions to remember while servicing are: make sure the engine is off before you begin any maintenance or repairs. Be sure there is adequate ventilation whenever you operate the engine. Carbon monoxide released from the engine exhaust can cause poisoning. Let the engine and exhaust system cool before touching to avoid burning from hot part. Do not run the engine unless instructed to do so to avoid injury from moving parts while servicing. Water pump. The operating manual of any centrifugal pump often starts with a general statement. A centrifugal pump will give you a completely trouble-free and satisfactory service only on the condition that it is installed and operated with due care and is properly maintained. A centrifugal pump is a rotating machine comprised of six main parts that work together to keep the pump operating properly. They include an impeller, a pump casing, bearings, a bearing frame, a shaft, and a mechanical seal. The operating principle of the pump is to convert mechanical energy to pressure. In operation, a rotating impeller accelerates a liquid, and as the area of the pump casing expands, the velocity of the fluid is converted to pressure. As a result, pressurized fluid exits the pump discharge. Dear trainees, please have a look at this picture of a water pump. The different parts of a water pump are fuel filler cap, air cleaner, throttle lever, choke lever, starter grip, fuel valve, oil drain plug, muffler and carrying handle. Preparation. Connect the suction hose. Use commercially available hose, hose connector and hose bands. The suction hose must be of reinforced and non-collapsible construction. Suction hose length should not be longer than necessary as pump performance is best when the pump is not far above the water level. Self-priming time is also proportional to hose length. The strainer that is provided with the pump should be attached to the end of the suction hose with a band as shown in the next slide. Caution: always install the strainer on the end of the suction hose before pumping. The strainer will exclude debris that can cause clogging or impeller damage. Note: tighten the hose connector and bands to prevent air leakage and loss of suction. A loosely connected suction hose will reduce pump performance and self-priming ability. Dear trainees, please have a look at this picture of a water pump and its different parts are filler cap, discharge port, suction port, strainer, pump drain cap, oil filler cap or dipstick, and engine switch. Weed or grass cutter. Dear trainees, different parts of weed cutter are throttle lock, power switch, throttle, shaft release lever, drive shaft, bevel gear case, grass trimmer, brush cutters, cord cutter, trimmer shield, left handle and harness connection. Weed and grass cutter. Weed and grass cutter is a hand equipment often powered by electricity or a gasoline motor for cutting weeds or trimming grass, often utilizing a rotating nylon cord as cutting blade. Dear trainees, please have a look at this slide to understand the maintenance cycle of a weed or a grass cutter. Troubleshooting air filter. Never let the engine run without the air filter. A dirty air filter element affects the engine performance, increases fuel consumption, and makes it difficult to start. If you notice a loss of engine power, Do the following. Remove the air filter cover by undoing the Allen bolt using the supplied Allen key. Carefully remove the outer cover, then remove the inner cover. Once the inner cover has been removed, you can remove the foam air filter element. If it is damaged, replace it. Otherwise, wash the element in clean soapy water, rinse in fresh water, and allow it to fully dry before replacing the filter element. Plant protection equipment power sprayer. A sprayer is a device used to spray a liquid. Sprayers are commonly used for projection of water, weed killers, crop performance materials, pest maintenance chemicals, as well as manufacturing and production line ingredients. In agriculture, a sprayer is a piece of equipment that is used to apply herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers on agricultural crops. Arrangement. Adjust the belt and pulley in order to make the belt straight. The V-belt must not be set loosely as it can slip away or drop out of its position. Oil filling and oil changing. Fill number 30 or number 40 oil through the oil hole. Keep the oil level just half of the oil gauge. Change the oil after 50 hours use for the first time and every 100 hours since then. The proper time for changing oil is after operating and the machine is still warm. Remove the drain plug and begin draining. Grease filling. The three grease cups on the cylinder must always be filled with grease. After using for every 2 hours, wind the grease cups about 2 circles per time. Spray. Fix firmly the suction hose 1A, overflow hose 1B, and spraying hose 1C on the suction metal, overflow body, and cock respectively. Make sure they must be set firmly and let no air leak out. Operate the power and start the power sprayer. Turn off the cock. After the power sprayer is normally operating, adjust the pressure screw. Then turn on the cock and begin operating the power sprayer. Troubleshooting. Feeding failure and pressure instability. Check whether the suction hose is leaking any of the air. If yes, tighten it up. Check whether the strainer is stuck. Clean it up if necessary. Turn on the cock for a little while to let out the air left in the feeder and then turn it off. Check whether the suction metal, cylinder, and 6 valves are stuck. Clean it up if necessary. Check the flat valve and valve seat to see whether they are damaged. Check whether the valve springs are damaged. Cylinder leaking. Take the stopper away from the cylinder with screwdriver. Remove the plunger cover and wind by the 3 grands on the cylinder for 1 by 3 round to 1 by 2 round. If leaking is still uncontrollable, change the V packing in the cylinder. Pressure falling. Check whether the V belt is loose. Check whether the spraying hose and coupling packing of spraying hose are broken. Renew the parts if necessary. Maintenance. Operate the power sprayer with clean water for about 5 minutes after use in order to clean the pesticides left in the machine. Remove the suction hose, overflow hose, and spraying hose. Then wipe every part of the machine dry. Check the oil in the crankcase. Refill oil if necessary. Check whether every screw is set firmly. Check whether there is any leak of oil. Caution: during operation, please don't reach out your hands into space of revolving belt wheel to prevent you from being harmed. Please check if there is enough oil before operating the machine. Please check if gasoline, diesel oil, or cooling water are enough before operating the machine. Please check if contact of electric source and insulation are in good condition before operating the machine. The spraying machine sprayed by pesticide or chemical liquid is prohibited to be used for pumping water to prevent poison. Please renew pressure gauge if it is damaged in order to maintain the machine's safety. Loosen pressure adjusting screw counter clockwise after using this machine. Harvesting, threshing, and post harvest machineries or equipment. Chainsaw. Chainsaws are very robust devices built to cut timber. Over the years, manufacturers have been working to make the machines more effective and safer to use by researching and modifying key components. Dear trainees, please read all the main components of a chainsaw and locate them in the given picture. Chain brake, a device to stop the rotation of the chain, especially if inadvertently activated in a kickback situation by the operator's hand. Chain sprocket cover, covers the clutch and sprocket. Chain sprocket, the toothed wheel that drives the saw chain. Chain tensioner, permits precise adjustment of the chain tension. Muffler, the muffler is a hearing protection device used on chainsaws to reduce engine noise. Oilomatic saw chain, a loop consisting of cutters, which is teeth, tie straps, and drive links. Throttle trigger interlock. The locking mechanism prevents the throttle from activating until the interlock is depressed. The trigger must be depressed before the throttle trigger can be activated. Throttle trigger controls the speed of the engine. Common tools for the chainsaw operator. Chainsaw operators must be prepared for any eventuality. The following items are recommended. Brush, an old 2-inch paintbrush will do. Cleaning rags, combi can, combination spanner, cylinder plug, depth gauge, devices for measuring oil or fuel, flat file, gasoline for cleaning parts, round file in file holder, soap, socket spanner, sledgehammer, spanner, spare bar, spare chain, spare spark plugs, water, wedges, fuel and lubricants. Fuel and lubricants. Fuel. Chainsaws utilize two-stroke air-cooled engines and these require a mixture of gasoline and engine oil. The operator must take care that fuel to be used is not contaminated with water, dust, or debris, and refueling must be taken seriously. The operator must clean the area around the fuel tank prior to refueling, and the fuel itself must be kept in sealed containers. Oil. Oil helps lubricate the moving parts of the engine. Oil should be added to the container with the fuel prior to putting the fuel mix into the tank of the chainsaw. Unsuitable fuel and oil may cause severe damage to the engine and render the chainsaw inoperable. Fuel oil mix ratio. For STIHL chainsaws, a fuel mix ratio of 50 parts of fuel to 1 part of STIHL fuel oil is recommended. Storage of fuel mixes. Operators are discouraged from storing fuel oil mixes as these mixes may degrade with time and potentially can become contaminated. Chain lubricant. The service life of the chain and guide bar depends on the quality of the lubricant. Here again, the chainsaw operator is urged to read the instruction manual. A typical test for a well lubricated chain is to check that the chainsaw throws a bit of oil. Preventive maintenance of the chain. The saw chain, driven by a sprocket that rotates when engine speeds accelerate beyond the idle status, runs along a groove in the guide bar. Whilst doing so, its cutters bite into timber, cutting or ripping the fibers of the timber. A well primed, well prepared saw carries out this task easily. The pitch. It is the distance between two rivets. The gauge. The relative thickness of the drive link and the groove of the guide bar so that the chain is kept upright. The tie straps, the side rails of the chain that serve to hold the chain together and keep it in one plane as it travels around the guide bar. The rivets, these hold the chain together while allowing single directional movement. The cutters, the teeth that carry out the main functions of the saw. One can therefore appreciate that with so many moving parts, the lubrication of the chain is of critical importance. Apart the lubrication of the chain, the most critical maintenance tasks are the sharpening of the teeth and the maintenance of the depth gauge. Sharpening of the teeth. The teeth are formed of steel as an extension of the tie strap. This extension extends upwards in an outward curve, then continuing slightly outwards before being folded over flat. The flat surface folds inwards, back over the side plate and other sections of the saw chain, covering to almost the point where opposite saw chain tooth would begin its own fold back towards the center. Each surface is called a plate, hence, we have side plate and top plate, where they join to form a corner, and the forward point of this corner is called the working corner, as this point does the work when cutting wood fibers. Key considerations in the use of a file holder. The file should be held horizontally at a right angle to the side of guide bar, and the filing should be done according to the angles marked on the file holder. The file holder should be placed on the top plate and depth gauge. Filing strokes should be done from the inside to outside of the tooth. File only on the forward stroke and lift the file of the cutter on the back stroke. Avoid touching the tie straps and drive links with the file. Rotate the file at regular intervals while filing to avoid any one side wear. Use a piece of hardwood to remove burrs from cutting edge. Check angles with the filing gauge. Ensure that all teeth are of the same height. Maintenance of the depth gauge. The depth gauge is the small protrusion that stands up in front of each tooth with the function of setting the depth of cut that the tooth is able to make in wood. General maintenance. Three basic maintenance tasks occur during normal working operations: tensioning of the chain, refueling or re-oiling, and sharpening of the tooth and adjustment of the depth gauge. Tensioning of the chain. The chain tends to run slack from the impacts with the fibers of the timber. Refueling or re-oiling. Both the fuel mixture tank and the oil tank need replenishment during field operations. Sharpening of the tooth and adjustment of the depth gauge. Wear from continually slicing through timber would wear the saw, causing it to become progressively less sharp and even blunt. A vigilant operator can normally sense when the chain requires sharpening. Common symptoms are pulling of the saw as it cuts through timber and erratic machine tones. Sowing and planting equipment. Sowing. Sowing is the placing of seeds in the soil to have a good germination in the field. More precisely, seeds can be generally sown into the soil by maintaining a planting depth of about 2 to 3 times the size of the seed. On sowing, the following aspects should be filled: correct amount of seed per unit area, correct depth at which the seed is placed in the soil, correct spacing between row to row and plant to plant. Different sowing methods are broadcasting, covering seeds with soil by planking, tractor drawn seed drills, dibbler, goru, tractor drawn seed drills, and bullock drawn seed drills. Drilling. Drilling consists of dropping the seeds in furrow lines in a continuous flow and covering them with soil. Equipments used in drilling. This can be done by a plow, which is animal drawn seed drill, or specified tractor. Plow is the one in which seed metering is done manually by the operator. The drill consists of furrow openers, funnel for feeding seed pipes for connecting funnel with pipes. For operation, the seed is fed by the operator manually in the funnel and is dropped in the furrow created by the openers. Seed drill is a machine for placing the seeds in a continuous flow in furrows at uniform rate and at a controlled depth, with or without the arrangement of covering them with soil. Dear trainees, this is how a seed drill machine looks like. Planter. A planter is an agricultural farm implement that is used for planting seeds that are larger in size and cannot be used by usual seed drills. Functions of the planter: to open the furrow, to meter the seed, to deposit the seed in the furrow, and to cover the seeds and compact the soil over it. Components of the planter: hopper, seed metering device, knockout arrangement, cut-off mechanism, furrow opener, and other devices. Seed metering mechanism of the planter. There are a number of seed metering devices in a planter, but the most common device consists of a rotating plate at the bottom of the seed hoppers. The horizontal seed plates have got suitable notches or holes called cells. Depending upon the type of notches on the plates, they are of three types: edge drop, flat drop, and hill drop. Edge drop. The edge drop carries the seed on edge in the cell of the plate. Flat drop. The flat drop carries the seed on a flat in the cell of the plate. and hill drop. In hill drop, the cells round the edge of the plate are larger enough to admit several seeds at a time. Dear trainees, this is a picture of a potato planter. Its different components are gears, hopper, conveyor cups, furrow openers, and ridging boot. Dear trainees, this is a real life picture of a potato planter. Different components of a semi automatic potato planter are chain and sprocket drive, seed hopper, seat, drive wheel, furrow opener, and seed wheel. Dear trainees, this is how a sugarcane planter looks like. Generally, sowing and planting equipment are of greater importance as they make the process easier of planting and sowing rather than when done manually. Sowing and planting equipments are many and of different types. Each type of sowing and planting equipment for specified crop works efficiently if it is used properly and at the specified task. Hence, farmers should be careful when choosing the type of equipment. They must choose the right equipment considering the type, size, and biological characteristics of grains or seeds to be planted so that they cannot be damaged. Dear trainees, thank you and all the best.